Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Wait one moment. Just realized it didn't do the time yet.
Ew.
Do the time. Man, this time is taking forever. Normally it pops up by now. There we go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the zoo. The minion with me this evening is Adam.
Hello.
And of course, I'm the keeper for this evening, Sanguine. How are you doing tonight, Adam?
I'm doing alright, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing grand. I had a fantastic beef enchilada dinner.
A, a beef enchilada dinner.
Yeah, I did beef enchiladas tonight
Do you
with
have
a
like a mole sauce on it?
So I didn't do a mole. Mole requires chocolate, but I did do a chili sauce, as
Ooh,
is standard with enchilada. So I did a red chili enchilada, and it was fantastic.
very nice.
And with that, I just got earlier today the current Dragon's Milk Reserve for the season. Dragon's Milk does reserve beers every so often. So they're beers that are designed to be cellared. You're familiar with cellaring, right?
Yeah. No.
Okay, cellaring is a process by which you get a beer, then you put it in a cool, dark environment for an extended period of time. And depending on how long you keep it in that cool, dark environment, its flavor changes. So, if, for instance, another really good beer for cellaring is the Comez Raspberry Porter. If you have a Comez Raspberry Porter and you first take a sip of it when you get it brand new, it is fairly sweet, has a fair bit of the maltiness from the beer, as well as this fruity raspberry note. As you cellar it, the beer is a raspberry and chili beer. So as it cellars, the flavors get much darker, much deeper, and you start to taste a bit more of that chili in the background of the beer. So if you have a 3 year Comes, it's now a much richer chocolatier, ah, chocolatey. Why can't I say this fucking word today?
A
Chocolatier,
chocolatier. He's like
chocolatier.
a Spaniard chocolatier.
It's a chocolatier beer that still has that raspberry note, but that raspberry note's now much lighter on the palate, and you get a bit more of that spice as well. So it's like a spiced chocolate with a raspberry coulis, and it's fantastic. But at every point in that aging process, you can crack it open and taste the difference from when it was fresh. So, Dragon's Milk, which is a milk stout, does yearly, or rather more quarterly, reserve beers. So, depending on which one you get, they come in different flavors. The one that I have currently, or rather, I have two of them. I have the most recent one, which is the Dragon's Milk Reserve S'mores. So it has kind of toasted marshmallows, graham cracker, and chocolate taste to the beer. And brand new, tastes amazing. You get a fair bit of that sweetness, a little bit of that graham cracker finish. I'm willing to bet as it ages, you get more chocolate, more graham cracker, and the toasted marshmallow softens. But I have that one. Then I also have a um, coffee and chili Dragon's Milk Reserve, which,
Hold on, coffee and chili?
yeah, so it's a coffee stout that has chili in the brewing as well. So it's like a really dark, vanilla creamed coffee that also has a hit of Mexican chili. So it's like the coffee equivalent of a Mexican hot chocolate.
Oh, so like what's that? Abuelita type. Is that's the thing, right? I think
If
that's
that's a
chocolate.
brand, I'm not familiar with that
I think
brand, but
so.
Mexican hot chocolate is
I think
a
it's like a
spiced chocolate. Hot
yeah.
chocolate.
I mean, I think it. Yeah, I think it's one of those things. But
So yeah,
I get
it's
what you're saying.
chocolate and chili peppers with just this very, very rich hot chocolate with that chili pepper, bit of cinnamon. It's a delicious spiced hot chocolate. But since it's a coffee and chili, it's kind of that more bitter coffee note of a dark roast coffee, but it still has a little bit of that chocolatiness, just not as much. And then it has that chili presence in it as well. So you have that warmth in your mouth after you drink it. But I got the newest one, which, like I said, is the Dragon's Milk Reserve S'mores. And it is fantastic. So I had one. I'll have the next one probably in like 3 to 6 months. The next one at about a year. And then I'll probably wait to drink the fourth for 2 years or so. Because cellared beers, oh good God, they're amazing. And you have had a cellared beer, by the way, Adam.
Wait.
Do you remember the Dragon's Milk from um Mythcon?
Well, hold on, dude. If it's part of I think you called it your beer box or something like that.
Yes. It
Yeah.
was my box of beer and booze.
If it was part of that, I probably had a sampling of it for
Yep.
sure. That's all fine and good. I want to know. So I guess um I don't know. We're allowed to talk about this, right? The upcoming
The camping trip?
Minions meetup. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. Hey, let's do a little plug. Boop boop. If you're gonna be at Gen Con, go hang out with your pals at of the Minions. We'll be there. But in terms of the camping trip, I want to do another cooking thing. What did we cook last time?
Last year I did beer brats one night, and then I did a campfire stew. And um
Didn't we?
I
What did we do at the? Did we do steaks at the?
we did steaks at so we did breakfast one day, and when we did breakfast, it was bacon and eggs. Then we did first night of the camping trip was beer brats. Second night was a campsite stew or campfire stew. That was the one with jerky and dried mushrooms and all that you guys were going, how the fuck did you make this from jerky?
Yeah, that
And
was something.
then I also did the yakimochi.
Oh shit! Yeah, the yakimochi. Are you gonna be able to do any of that?
Yeah, I can do more yakimochi. That's easy. That's dead easy. So I did yakimochi, and then we did steaks the night at the hotel. And then
Yeah, because didn't you guys get the steaks at the
at
grocery
Mans,
store?
yeah.
Yeah.
So we
What
did.
were they?
So I think what we got two different types. I think we did ribeye and New York strip. I think those were the two different sorts that we got. And those were just done very simply.
So you think you want to do the same, or do you want to try something different? what kind of What do you think about fish?
I can do fish. That was one of the things that originally it sounded like Bug was going to bring fishing equipment last year.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, but
And I
he
said,
didn't
yeah,
bring his
anything
tackle
that
box.
Bug was able to catch, I'd be able to cook. So I can do fish, I can do shrimp, I can do any sort of seafood,
Bro,
beef, pork,
you
chicken.
know what? I I will say this: if we're gonna go out to a restaurant, if they have I've never tried lobster. I want to try lobster.
Oh, lobster's delicious as long as it's fresh lobster.
Well, I mean, we're in Wisconsin. I mean, we're what Stadler or Stetson or something like that, whatever that town's called. I'm sure they got lobster. I want to try
Possibly.
some lobster.
Yeah, lobster's delicious. Like I said, if it's good fresh lobster, it's amazing. It goes fantastically with butter. But yeah, I can do all sorts of different meals. Hell, the night that it was, or rather, the day that it was Weibo and I breaking camp, I did a pork loin with a hot honey shoyu sauce, and it was fantastic.
Oh, I guess a
It
lot of
was
people in
just
chat don't like lobster. Well, you know what? I also want to try crab. And yeah, that's also a sea bug. You gotta try it.
crab's delicious, lobster's delicious, shrimp's
But I
delicious,
won't try onions. Do.
onions are delicious.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Um, yes, yes, but I look forward to our adventures,
When you're
and
talking about
hopefully,
pubic crabs, yes. And actually, they aren't an STD, they're just a parasite that is most related to gorilla lice, which means that the most tame potential origin of pubic lice when it comes to humans is that a human slept on the hide of a gorilla after our hair separated, because
what?
originally humans were a lot more hirsute, but pubic lice, because they only exist in the pubic region and they aren't related to our head lice. It means that they're a species of lice that originated after the separation of our hair. So when it went to, we have hair in our head and we have hair in our crotch and in our armpits as the largest areas of hair. So either someone slept on a gorilla pelt that was infested with gorilla lice, or some early hominid fucked a gorilla.
Um, yes.
Those are the two most likely origins of gorilla lice, or of crabs, because, like I said, crabs are most related to gorilla lice, not human lice.
You know, Sanguine. When we're
That's
hanging
knowledge
out,
that you could have been fine
hold
not
on.
knowing.
When we're hanging out and and we're enjoying a nice lobster meal, right? You know, uh, you, Sanguine, um, Eeyore. fortunately or unfortunately. And I'm sure Quiz's friend um,
Bug.
and I. Well, no, I don't think Bug's gonna be hanging out with us on the
Oh, it's not
camping
Bug
trip.
this time?
No.
Oh, okay.
Um, but I don't think you want to bring this type of topic up.
What, you aren't interested in the evolutionary origin of pubic lice?
Not when we're eating some, or at least attempting to eat some delicious, with added butter, a lobster. Uh,
How about the origin of the porcine and humanoid tapeworm and its life cycle and how that gets passed around people, and how if you end up getting introduced to it at a specific point of its overall life cycle, it will cause you to have, or it'll cause the tapeworms to be able to enter the brain. Whereas if you're introduced to it at a different point of the cycle, then it's unable to burrow so deeply and it just will stay in your guts.
that you could probably save for dessert.
Okay.
It's nice when you're having a nice ice cream, listening to parasites. That sort of
Finding
thing.
out the origin of various parasites, yeah.
Um, so did you have any news topics that
Well, there's been a fair bit of interesting news as of late. There's the various stories of crime from a number of areas, including, I think it was Chicago. There's a bunch of people that are trying to speak to the people that are armed robbing and shooting UPS and USPS drivers, asking them to kindly stop shooting the mail carriers and packaged carriers and stop stealing from mail carriers and package carriers. Have you heard that story?
Yep, and it did absolutely nothing.
Yeah, did fuck all, just like every single time that a group tries to go out and say, hey, criminals, did you know that committing a crime is bad? People don't commit crime out of ignorance of crime being bad.
Well, it's kind of interesting that we have that coupled with the I think it was a CNN reporting of a Walgreens that has been shoplifted so many times, and they were like, "Hey, this Walgreens has been shoplifted so many," and then they captured three
Three shopliftings
shopliftings.
while they're there for like their 15-minute segment. Yeah.
And then there was another one where it was like a Home Depot, and this is where it's like, at what
You
it's
talking
not.
about the poor guy that's currently being charged for first degree homicide?
Wait, what?
So there was the, if I remember correctly, he's being charged for first degree homicide. Oh wait, no, sorry, he wasn't being charged. I'm conflating two stories. So are you talking about the Home Depot where the theft prevention officer saw a woman try to steal something, went up to talk to her, she attacked him, he was able to grab the item and get back into the store. She left the store entirely, went out, grabbed a handgun, walked back in, shot the man, grabbed the item that she was originally trying to steal, and walked out. And they're trying to lower the sentencing for her. Is that the case that you're talking about?
No, I was just talking about another just random looting incident where they caught a couple of people, but it was Home Depot, just another one. I didn't hear about that one. Oh,
Yeah, the one that I mentioned is from a little bit ago, not ridiculously long. It's earlier in the year. And like I said, it was woman tried to shoplift. The loss prevention officer went, "Hey, you can't shoplift." She attacked him. He pushed her off, and in the scuffle, when she attacked him, he ended up grabbing the item that she was trying to shoplift. She ran off. He walked back into the store thinking that this was done and dusted. She grabbed a gun, came back in, shot him. They're trying to downgrade her charges, which they didn't charge her with premeditated murder, despite her going out to get a weapon to kill the man. And they were trying to downgrade away from even second degree murder.
ew.
And they were rapidly approaching, maybe it was just manslaughter.
What state was this?
It was California.
Oh.
Yeah, so they're
Well,
doing that. Also, they weren't notifying the family of the man who was murdered for like a fucking toaster or some shit. That they were downgrading the charges. They found out when they read a news article about it. And they were trying to make it so that the woman might serve like a few months in prison rather than the years that a premeditated homicide should serve. Because again, there was no argument, or there is no way that you can argue that it wasn't premeditated. She left to get a gun. She went back in and she shot the guy. It wasn't in the middle of the fight, a gun went off and the guy dropped dead. That would be still something that should be charged as murder in the commission of a crime, which is normally charged as first degree. But then you might be able to argue, well, really, it should be down. No, it shouldn't, but I could at least somewhat understand someone trying to argue that it was an accident. The gun wasn't supposed to go off, but it went off. No. She went out, she got a gun, came back and shot the man. Cold blood. And then stole the item. And they were getting rid of all the modifying circumstances because when it comes to certain crimes, you have modifiers that can be tacked on and they increase the severity of the sentence. They were stripping all of those from the charges. It was absolute horseshit what was happening, and they're still trying to do it. It's infuriating.
And I agree.
They just keep on doing this shit when it comes to crimes. I'm sick and tired of the, well, we have ways of preventing these crimes. We need to focus on those. No. It's not it's not an or situation. It's not either we punish people for the crimes that they commit or we try to deal with methods of dissuading people from crime other than just punitive measures. No. If you want to try the non-punitive measures, you can try those. The punitive measures are still going to be there. They need to still be there. Because if they aren't there, all your shit's not going to do a goddamn thing. And it's infuriating that they keep on doing this. They keep on, well, we need to be concerned about the fact that so many non-violent drug offenders. First off, you've heard the non-violent drug offenders line before, of course, right?
Sure.
So, do you know the major problem with the non-violent drug offenders line? Because the argument is that we have a bunch of people that are in prison for non-violent drug offenses, and they shouldn't be in prison for non-violent drug offenses. Do you know what the issue with that is?
Yeah, they usually try and paint a picture of it's like, just your average street drug vendor type dude.
Well, normally they don't even try to paint it as the dealer. What they try to say is it's just poor schmoes that get caught with drugs on them, and suddenly their life is ruined. They become felons.
Well, yeah, even worse, yeah. Just the guy who got caught smoking a joint on the curb.
Yep. Do you know the major problem with that narrative?
What's that?
The overwhelming number of people that are in prison for non-violent drug offenses, those were due to plea deals where they pled guilty to a non-violent drug offense when they were actually being charged with violent assaults, homicides, and shit like that. Because the evidence wasn't quite ironclad enough for the DA to feel comfortable pursuing those charges. So what they did was they allowed for a lesser plea deal, pleading guilty to a non-violent drug offense, which still landed them in prison for a period of time, when they should have been going to prison for homicide, for violent assaults, or for any number of other crimes. So a good chunk of the non-violent drug offenders are actually in there because they were committing a violent crime, and this was the best bet of getting them away from the general population for a period of time. That's a common thing. And it's just absolutely infuriating that so many people are going, well, we have so many people in non-violent drug offenses. No, we don't. We have a bunch of people that pled guilty to non-violent drug offenses so that they didn't get hit with violent crime times. And we had a bunch of DAs that were going, well, we aren't 100% sure that we can get them on the violent crime, but if they're pleading guilty to this, then at least we're getting them off the streets for a period of time.
And
it's
and like you'd hope that, I hope you learned your lesson, but that's cartoonish. Yes.
Well, yeah, you hope that when you send them to prison, so there's several things that are hoped when you send someone like that to prison on a lesser plea deal. First off, you're going, there was a chance that if we pursued the full charges, we wouldn't have gotten them off the streets at all. Because our evidence might not have been enough to convince a jury of their peers beyond the shadow of doubt. Which then you would have had someone that was a violent offender out on the street able to continue offending. That's not a good situation. So you give them the lesser plea deal, you at least get them off the street for a period of time. They think that it's a good idea because they're going, well, I could be going to prison for life, but because I did this plea deal, I'm getting a 5, 10, 15-year sentence, which, by the way, that's also one of the ways that you can tell if someone pled down to charge like that. If they're serving more than the minimum sentence when pleading down to, or when they were charged with a non-violent drug offense, 9 times out of 10, if not more than 9 times out of 10, you're looking at someone that pled down to the offense, and they're doing less time than they would have if they had been convicted, but they're doing more time than they would have if it had actually been a minor drug offense. And this is a common thing.
Wait, so they worked out all this math to get away with a better plea deal?
Oh, yeah, that's part of the thing. When it comes to plea deals, a offender isn't going to plead to something that screws them over. So what you end up having to do is you end up with this compromise where you're getting them off the street for a period of time, which is a good thing, because if they're in prison, they aren't committing crime against the general public. That's just a truism. If you're incarcerated, if you're in a 5x8 cell, you aren't committing crimes against people that aren't in that prison.
Yeah, but dude, you know full well that that person is not in that cell 24/7 for the entirety of their sentence.
No, but they're within the prison for the entirety of their sentence.
And
being
we
within the
can't
prison
say
means that
that
they might be able to victimize other offenders within that prison, but they aren't going to be able to attack someone that is outside of that prison while they're in that prison.
They're still working. And when they get out, they're, going right back to what they're doing.
Yep, and that's a big problem when it comes to recidivism. If one of the best solutions that you could have to deal with recidivism rates is part of parole should be you aren't allowed to go back to where you lived. You aren't allowed to go back to where you came from. If you are from this city center, you aren't being released to that city center. You have to go somewhere else in order to be released. Because if you just send them right back to the neighborhood that they've been in and that they were in before, all their friends are still doing the same shit. All the people that they know are still doing the same shit. The only work that they have experience in is doing the same shit. You pop them in the same environment that caused them to go to this in the first place, with the same skills that allowed them to do this in the first place, with the same friends that encouraged them and did it with them in the first place, they're going to do it again. That's one of the reasons why recidivism rates are as high as they are. It's because we keep on pumping people back into the same areas that they've been in. Like, there's an interesting thing that's known in corrections that not many people know. Do you know what family member visiting an offender is the best indication that the offender will be able to get out and not reoffend?
What's that?
Their grandmother or grandfather, but typically grandmother.
Wait, what?
If a grandma and or grandfather, but more often grandma, is visiting an offender while they're in prison, that offender has a much higher rate of actually going honest, of going clean when they get out of prison. They have a much lower rate of reoffense.
Damn. Nobody wants to offend their grandma.
Well, there's a legitimate thing behind this, and there's two interpretations. I'll give the one that's wrong first, because this is the one that areas keep on fucking up with. So this is a stat that's known. Yes, they have the highest chance of being rehabilitated. This is a stat that's known, and it's known to people in corrections, and it's known to people in politics when they're looking into this. If the grandmother's visiting, or if a grandmother visiting is the greatest indicator of if someone's going to be able to be rehabilitated, a bunch of states and a bunch of fucking gormless idiots looked at this and went, so that means we need to encourage grandmothers to visit their grandchildren in prison.
Oh, grandma and granny.
As if it's something that is innate to grandmothers that causes their grandchildren to act right. It isn't. The reason why they have the highest rate of rehabilitation is exactly what Cannibalistic Wizard just said. Grannies are less likely to visit a dunce. They're less likely to visit a completely inexcusable grandchild in prison. Mothers, that's their kid. Doesn't matter what they did. That's their kid. Grandmothers have that little bit of separation that allows them to say, yeah, I love this kid. He's my grandson. I would do anything for him. He's fucking evil.
So that little bit of doubt is enough to give him that.
See, you're leaning almost into the same venue that the states have leaned into. What it actually is not that it's anything special about the grandmother visiting. It's that grandmothers only visit offenders that are more likely to rehabilitate. It's not that if you got a completely unrepentant criminal's grandmother to visit him while he's in prison, that he'll suddenly have a higher rate of rehabilitation. It's that the offenders that are visited by their grandmothers haven't crossed that line yet. They aren't that completely reprehensible, inexcusable bastard. There's still something that the grandmother sees that gives them hope that their grandchild will actually turn their life around. It's something that there's a bunch of examples of this, but it's the post hoc ergo proctor hoc, I think is the proper fallacy name for it. And
yeah,
what it's the idea of that is that because something is that way after, that thing being that way before was what made the thing happen in the first place. So there's examples of this that aren't fallacies, and then there's examples of this that are fallacies. So a door being open, allowing you to walk through the door, that's not an example of a fallacy. The door needs to be open for you to walk through the door. But the existence of a lock on a door does not make it so that you can walk through the door. In fact, if the lock is locked, it prevents you from walking through the door. The existence of the lock has nothing to do with you walking through the door, other than if it's locked, you can't. If it's unlocked, then you're able to suddenly walk through the door. So you have to look at, does this actually relate to what the fuck is happening? Yeah, there's also correlation is not causation is another good example. But correlation is not causation is another thing that's at play with this. But the main thing, the reason why they're trying to bus in grannies is they have this view of, well, the grannies visiting make them do this. And yeah, correlation causation works for this. So the grannies being bussed in makes them more likely to... Correlation is just an association. Causation is actually the relation. And Skep, I'm talking about the well-known fact within corrections, that is, that the people that are the most likely to be able to reintegrate into society, the most likely to rehabilitate, are the ones that are visited by their grandmothers. Really, it's any grandparent, but specifically grandmothers have the highest effect of this, are the most likely to reintegrate. And there's states that keep on thinking that, oh, grandmothers visiting their children makes it so that their grandchildren makes it so that their grandchildren will be able to reintegrate. No, it's that grandmothers only visit children that are likely to be able to reintegrate. And they keep on getting that backwards. And there's a bunch of things that people keep on getting backwards. Another good example is the poverty causes crime argument. That is another one where they're going, well, because a lot of criminals come from poor areas. And yeah, it's not just that. That's part of it, Skep, but it's the grandmother has just enough separation that she still has that love. She still has that, I want my grandchild to do the best that they can. But they also have that separation that allows them to look at their grandchild and go, this grandchild is an evil son of a bitch.
Right? So they can't ever say that, some of these... Well, it's like they can't ever say that this is some bad child. Like, come on.
Mothers tend not to be able to say that their child... Most mothers have an extremely hard time saying that their child is evil. Most mothers want desperately for their child to be good, and they'll go to the end of the world in order to defend their child. This is the reason why spoiled brats almost always have the mother right behind them saying, my little Timmy wouldn't do that. My little Timmy is an angel. And when little Timmy grows up and becomes a full-grown adult, so with the thing that I'm stating, there has been research into what causes it, and when it comes down to it, like I said, a bunch of states have attempted to increase the rate that grandmothers visit their felonious grandchildren, and that has crushed the rate of rehabilitation. And yeah, sometimes the grandmother's a sociopath too, but that doesn't... Individual cases of sociopathy do not overwhelm the overall trend. And when states have programs where they bus grannies in to visit their felonious grandchildren, that decreases the relationship between grandmothers visiting their grandchildren in prison and the grandchildren being able to rehabilitate. God damn it, Skep. I'm not talking about grandmothers being convicted of crimes. But
dude, well, just because they're a grandma, you can't always just trust them, right?
And I'd actually be surprised if it's higher than I think, just because I do have a somewhat warped sense of how common certain crimes are, given my interest in forensics. I tend to overestimate rates. Not by a massive degree, but by a bit. Because I know how many times there have been serial killer grandmothers. It is. There's a fair number of serial killer grandmothers in history.
No, yeah. Well, yeah. Um, I don't know if you can consider a serial killer, but she might have been a granny. But I'm thinking of that lady who went with during the prohibition or before the prohibition. Um, she went around.
Are you talking about the axe wielding prohibitionist?
Yeah,
Yeah, she didn't
yeah.
kill anyone, but she was a mean bitch.
I love that lady. I want to do a comic series on it. Like fucking, she goes in there and she has an axe and a purse full of fucking bricks, and she's like, you
Yep.
know what? We're done. Whoppa!
But yeah, there's been a fair bit of research into the phenomenon. Like I said, a lot of states have misunderstood what causes it and have tried to bus in grannies thinking that it was just the mere presence of the grandmother and not that no, it's not the grandmother's visit is the causation, it's the grandmother's visit is a symptom of the reason why those people are more likely to be rehabilitated
Mm-hmm.
because the grandmother just doesn't bother going to the shitty grandkids.
Oh, she's not done. She has work to do.
And it's something that just drives me crazy because it happens so fucking often. And like I said, it's the same idea behind, well, crime or poverty causes crime. No. Just because a bunch of criminals come from poor areas doesn't mean that it's the poverty that's causing the crime. In fact, a lot of those poor areas were rich areas at one point, and then crime moved in, and those rich areas became poor areas, and crime continued, and those poor areas became poor areas, and crime continued. Normally, it's the crime is the precursor to the poverty, not the poverty is the precursor to the crime.
Yeah.
And it's infuriating that we keep on seeing people look at these bits of information and they get the entirely wrong idea from them because they just take a snapshot. They don't look at anything else. They just take a snapshot and they go, well, because most people that commit crimes come from impoverished areas, then that means that poverty causes crime. Not looking at if there's poorer areas that have less crime, because if poverty caused crime, then the more poverty that you had, the more crime that you would have. Even if it's diminishing return, even if it, as the poverty level increases, the crime only reaches a certain point, you would still be able to see that trend up to a certain point and then see it flatline. Whereas we have areas that are much poorer than the most crime-ridden areas that don't have anywhere near the crime. Yeah, hopelessness. And it's hopelessness causes crime to a large degree. It's also when you're in an area where everyone else is committing crime, the chance that you're going to commit crime goes up remarkably fast. So the more crime that's in an area, the more likely you're going to commit crime. The more that you feel like everything's set against you and that there's absolutely no way that you could ever come out on top other than commit crime, the more likely you are to commit crime. The less punishment there is for committing crime, the more likely you are to commit crime. Now, there's diminishing return. It has marginal utility. You can't just increase the punishment for crime and always have a fall in the crime rate. There's a certain point where you have the optimal utility. Anything beyond that doesn't really pay off. Anything less than that causes a much worse situation. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, Skep. That when it is easy enough, which is the environmental conditions, that's the crime isn't really punished, that's everyone around you is committing crime, it becomes very easy to do what everyone else is and commit crime. And then the necessity is when you feel like there's no way that you can achieve past where you are without committing crimes. That adds the necessity. That adds the necessity far more than, well, poverty. No, not poverty. Unless you're talking about someone starving to death stealing food. Poverty isn't what necessitates the crime. And you can see this in other areas as well. The reason why the Russian military is so fucking corrupt is because everyone is corrupt. And everyone's been corrupt for such a long time that anyone that comes into the Russian military that isn't corrupt quickly learns that they're going to get nowhere without being corrupt. So they start feeding into the corruption. When you're surrounded by corruption, you're going to be corrupt. Unless you have the most ridiculous sense of personal morals, you're going to end up becoming corrupt. Because when all of your superiors are corrupt, it decreases the pressure on you to stay honest. And there's this interesting thing where the lower the level of corruption, when it comes to the military at least, the greater the multiplier is for how damaging that is to the military. Because a maintenance tech in a Russian motor pool being corrupt, it means that he'll steal shit from the vehicles and that he won't really work all that hard. He'll just sign the paperwork saying that he is so that he gets paid. So the amount of money that he's taking is not that much. The effect on the military is absolutely massive because now every vehicle within that depot doesn't have fuel, doesn't have a lot of the wiring that it should have, doesn't have a lot of the equipment that it should have, has a lot of its armored plating has been sold off to various other people.
It's like a decay from inside, like a cavity, you know?
Yeah. It's like decay. And when you're looking at it, it's decay at the lowest level like that is decay in the roots. Where if a plant's roots are decaying, the plant's fucking dead. If it's just some leaves that are decaying, get rid of those leaves, plant survives. And hell, the plant, a good chunk of the time, will be able to shuck off those leaves and survive.
Yeah, at least have a chance, right?
Yeah, which is where a lot of high-level corruption ends up, because a head of this branch or that branch who's in charge of what they end up equipping their troops with, if they overpay by 15% on every rifle that they're buying from a company in order to get a kickback from that company, the company keeps 10% and they keep 5% as a kickback. That's corruption. There's no way around it. That's corruption. But the thing is that your troops are still getting rifles.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So it doesn't really have a multiplicative effect. You can factor that into a budget that Yes, Muccatelli's going to be overspending by 15%. So we just need to budget in an extra 15%. There's no real budgeting in for that motor pool not doing preventative maintenance on the vehicles, not fueling the vehicles, not maintaining the shit that they need, and selling off the wiring. There's no real, you can just factor that into a budget line. It has a ridiculous multiplicative effect. But the thing is that the guy at the top being that corrupt, and then the guy just below that guy at the top, and then the guy just below that guy, and then the guy just below that guy, all the way down to the motor pool, the motor pool has no reason to be honest. Because they look at everyone else and they're going, okay, all of our leadership bribed their way into those positions. The people that bought this equipment, they were bribed to buy this equipment. The people that shipped us this equipment, we only got like a third of what we were supposed to get because they ended up redirecting the equipment and selling it off for their own benefit. So if I'm not going to be taking this shit that I have access to, I'm losing out. And I'm never going to get anywhere. It's the culture that breeds the crime to a large extent.
Do you think this culture is delegated to specific areas, or?
No, I think it's everywhere. It's just how much it's tolerated.
Oh.
And how easy it is to hide.
Whoa, hold on. I don't know about anybody else, but it's not, you said it depends on how blank and then how one resides.
How much it's tolerated and how easy it is to hide.
Oh, okay.
Because if everyone else around you has absolutely no tolerance for your bullshit when it comes to you're going to pad the numbers a little bit. If everyone else calls you on that shit and you know that you're going to be called on that shit, you know that you're going to be brought up and you will be charged, you aren't going to risk that shit. Especially if you're getting paid a decent amount. So you'd be losing your decent pay, gaining absolutely nothing, losing everything.
And it kind of sounds like you're describing like an Uber Eats driver right now, you know?
In certain areas, yeah. In other areas, no. Because in certain areas of the country, it's probably extremely rare that someone who's delivering your food swipes it.
Yep.
In other areas, it is probably almost rarer that you get everything that you ordered exactly how you ordered it. Because it, again, comes down to the culture. Not everywhere in the United States is having rampant shoplifting.
No.
There are certain areas that all their stores are having to close down effectively because they can't continue functioning with the amount of loss that they have.
But I will say it's interesting seeing some towns, well, at least where I'm at, you'll see some towns start increasing these news articles of shoplifting and then eventually we have to start locking up our stuff. And it's in areas where it's like, wow.
Well, a good chunk of pretty much every area where they have to start locking up their shit, it's because they've been shoplifted ridiculously.
Yep.
And when you have that amount of loss going out the door, you have to come up with some method. And one of the oldest methods is lock everything up. You lock everything up, you make it. This is the reason why a lot of old school stores, you didn't walk around. You didn't go grab the shit yourself. What you'd do is you'd go up to the front, there'd be a worker. You'd say, I want X, Y, and Z. The worker would write that down. Then the worker would go back into the store. He would find X, Y, Z for you. He would come back up. He'd show you the items. Go, this is everything that you said you wanted, right? These are good enough quality for what you wanted. You don't see any defects? No, I don't see any defects. Okay, that's this much money. And you would have to pay, because it meant that no one would really be able to shoplift if no one was allowed where the actual items were kept.
Hey, that's crazy that you say that, because that sounds like how I purchased some of my my herbal products
Yeah.
this afternoon. I sat there and I showed my ID and I put in my order, and then I went in and the dude was like, "Oh, okay." And he went and got my order and he showed me each item and he's like, "This is the price." I'm like, "Okay, here you go." I gave him some money and I walked out with my product. That
Yeah.
was it.
And that's a really old school way of doing business. I think that was before Skep's time, even, but he probably heard about it from his
No,
parents.
I'm pretty sure Skep Tock remembered. No, he was. You know what? Skep Tock was sitting there, and he had that like sailor hat where it had the little ribbon on the top, and then he was
The
licking a
belt and
big
buckle.
old yep, and he was licking a big old lollipop, and his dad was purchasing items like that. Let me tell you, sir. Could I get one product of this Dapper Dan hair product and another product of let me get this tonic there.
Oh, yeah, like I said, I'm willing to bet it might have been before Skep's time. In fact, I'm willing to bet it was before Skep's time. But I'm willing to bet his parents had that experience of they would go to a store, they would have their list of items, they would pass it to the store clerk. The store clerk would go grab all the items and come back, and you would buy them that way.
Yeah,
Because
and
they're
honestly,
okay.
I don't see anything wrong with that. You know?
Yeah. Well, the thing that was wrong with it from a business perspective is you had to pay a lot more people to work at your business.
Oh, you
Because
mean for them to actually do some work?
yeah, you'd have to, rather than just paying a bunch of cashiers to work at the front, you would have to pay for enough staffing that everyone that walked into the store, they would have no more than like a 5 minute wait.
Dude, but what I just what I was talking about with my herbal products. No,
Mm-hmm.
these people are just standing around, and the place that I'm at, like, I try and limit my interactions with them because apparently they don't care if their staff is um not up to snuff for their work. Um, but no, but there was plenty of people there just waiting around willing to accept the money. Oh, because it's all, if you place an order online or you place an order on their little tablet. So if it was like that, I can go in there and be like, oh, I'm gonna go in. What do I need? This, that, and this. Place the order and just
Yeah,
go in
with
there and.
modern convenience, we do kind of have this coming back to a certain degree. I mean, think about how many grocery stores you have the ability to order your groceries online, just go up
Oh
and pick
yeah,
them.
you could do that. Yeah, with like Walmart and Target and all that shit.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
you can
you
do
can
that.
get it with a bunch of different stores where you have store shoppers that are now hired that go around and they pick up that item or pick up the items, but
Oh shit, service merchandise.
they have it
Wow.
set up with they have a select number of people that do that, or those people are contracted out from another company, like Instant Cart is contracted work, and they'll go grab all the items, and then you'll have a set pickup time. So that's one way of doing it, the tech way, which means that you don't really have to hire a lot more staffing. But if you're doing it the old fashioned way, where anyone that walks into the store has to be shopped for effectively. So they give you a list, you grab all the items off the list, and then you come back up to the front. If you're doing that, you need a larger work staff, unless you have a monopoly where you won't have people going, well, I could go to this store and that would be a 30-minute wait for me to get everything that I need there. Or I could go to the competitor over here and that's only a 5-minute wait.
Well, I mean, at that point, it does go back to, um, I guess, quality of the staff and
Yep.
the shop because I can tell you right now, the place the place that I just went to. Speaking of, going back to what I was, just as an example, um, I will only go there with a prerequisite, I have a list set out. Here's what I want, so I can
Yeah, you don't
easily
go
go
there
in.
to ask their, let's call them sommeliers, to give
Yeah,
you a recommendation.
I this is what I need. Let's get out of here. Um,
Yep.
However, there's two other shops that I go to. There's one that's closer to a mall, and this place is kind of hobby snobby,
Yep.
and also the taxes is way high. So it's like, I don't want to go there. But
Yeah,
there's this other
unless you're
place.
looking for a good recommendation and you trust someone there, then you would go there. But you wouldn't go there for your day in, day out. It would be the I want something new.
Well, yeah, they do have some items that you couldn't find at other places.
Yeah.
So, um,
It's
but
kind of like how the liquor store. So I have 4 liquor stores that I could go to that are all kind of equidistant from where I am. And there's one that I go to most often because it has this one dude who works there that I asked him a question one day about an alcohol that I was curious about. I hadn't had that particular one. It was a type of whiskey. And he told me what he thought about it. And he went, okay, what are some of the whiskeys that you like? I told him the whiskeys that I like. And he went, okay, if you like those whiskeys, you need to try this whiskey and that whiskey. So I tried one of them that week, one of them the next week, both of them fucking amazing. Couple weeks later, I'm trying to get some rum and I found out that I like Papa Pillar. That's a fantastic rum. It's white rum's good. It's dark rum is good. They have a sherry cask rum, very good. So I like that. But one of the weeks that I went, they didn't have Papa's Pillar. So saw that same guy again, and I went, okay. I was looking for this one rum. They didn't have this one rum. Is there a rum that you would recommend that's in the same sort of vein. And he went, okay, this one, that one, and this one. Next 3 times that I went in, I got 1 bottle of each of the ones that he pointed to. All of those, fucking amazing. Now I go to that store almost every time that I'm looking to try something new, because I'll find that guy and I'll go, look, I'm trying to figure out a new X, Y, Z, whatever type of booze I'm trying to figure out. And he'll give me recommendations. And he has not missed on a single one of his recommendations yet. So, even if I think one of the other stores is slightly cheaper on some of the products that I get, even though those stores are slightly cheaper, I don't hit them as often because the store that I go to, it has knowledgeable personnel at the store that are able to give suggestions. And yeah, one of the ones that he suggested one of the times that I went was the Diplomatico. I've had 2 different Diplomaticos. Let me check. One of them's still on my booze shelf, I think. There it is. So, one of the Diplomatico that I had was the Mantuano, which is rather lovely. I enjoy that rum. And then I had one of the other Diplomaticos, and it was very, very fucking good. He also recommended Relicario, which is a very good rum. A Caniche XO, which was rather good. And then Mount Gay Black Barrel, which was fantastic as well. So, being able to get recommendations from someone who knows their shit is worth potentially paying a couple dollars extra here and there. To me. But to other people, it won't be that couple dollars extra.
The couple dollars extra and or finding those shops that cut you a couple dollars off, every now and then. Oh, hey, don't worry about the change. It's all good.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
I like those. I like those shops.
Or
but those are personal shops, right?
I'm fine if I can find a small shop that they're a bit more relaxed and they give good prices. They might not know the most about everything that they sell, but their prices are fantastic. Then yeah, that'll be a shop that I hit. Or if I have to pay a little bit more in order to get someone who knows their shit about what they're selling, those are really the 2 sorts that I'm most prone to go to. Now, if I could find one that is cheaper and really knows its shit, that would be my go-to 100% of the time. But the thing is, better staff costs more money. More money that you have to spend on better staff means that you probably have to charge more. And I'm willing to deal with that trade-off. So I have places that I know I can trust, and I know I can get recommendations from. And if I am just looking for something that I know will be at any of the stores, and I know one of the stores will be cheaper, and I'm not looking for anything else, then yeah, I'll hit one of the cheaper stores. And I'll get just that item. And this is something that... This is the split between Lowe's and Home Depot, or at least it was traditionally. Lowe's tended to have people that knew a bit more about what they were talking about. Home Depot tended to be a little bit cheaper. So, if you were just looking for an item, you'd go to Home Depot. If you were looking for a couple items, a recommendation, and perhaps you were going, look, I'm trying to do this job for the first time and I'm not 100% sure how to go about this, then you'd go to Lowe's, because you'd be able to talk to one of the people at Lowe's and they'd go, oh, you're doing that bit of work. Well, do you have this tool at home? Because that tool really makes it easy. Do you have, all you do is X, Y, Z, boom, boom, boom. If you don't have that tool, then you do this, that, and the other. And it's a little bit more difficult, but it's still doable. And people would pay for that little bit of knowledge. And that's something that you would find at a lot of places. That was also where a lot of small stores tried to combat big boxes, and that's where the ones that survived were successful. And a lot of those small stores, when they started going away from the expert opinion, that was when they started having trouble. Like Phrase Electronics recently went into a massive downturn. And it was because Phrase Electronics used to have people that knew what the fuck they were talking about. And then they stopped hiring as high quality personnel. So it became, okay, you could go to Phrase and they might have a couple items more than you don't know, or they might have some more knowledge than like a Best Buy, and they might have a little bit better selection than a Best Buy. But they don't beat the knowledge and selection at Micro Center or some shit like that. So fewer and fewer people started going to Phrase, and more people started going to Micro Center or Best Buy or some other electronics place. And then there were a bunch of other electronics stores that were doing the same thing. Best Buy was just, they couldn't really tell you much other than when they first got Geek Squad knew some shit, then their Geek Squad went to hell. But other stores, Micro Center still has staff that knows what they're talking about more often than not. There's other stores in the same venue. Circuit City originally was trying to do that, where they would get really knowledgeable staff. Then they sacrificed the really knowledgeable staff in order to make things cheaper, and they've gone bankrupt and sold all their shit since. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, Doc. That Lowe's was the place that if you needed some help, that was where you would go. You would go to Lowe's. You wouldn't go to Home Depot. But if you're just looking for some 4x8s, you didn't need any assistance. You didn't need any shit beyond just the raw material. You'd go to Home Depot. And Menards is much the same as Lowe's, where you'd go to Menards. Menards tends to know a little bit more than Home Depot would. So you'd go there for that additional help, not just for the product. Only Menards also had a decent price. And there's this constant trade-off that a bunch of businesses have, where do you want to go a little bit cheaper, not as good quality, or not as good service, or do you want to go a little bit more expensive, better quality, and or better service? This is the constant choice, and different people will have different price points that they want. You'll have people that doesn't matter what grocery store they hit, as long as they can get ground beef 90-10. They don't give a shit about the provenance of the ground beef as long as it's beef. But then you have other people that are going, no, I want to be able to get dry-aged steaks, so they'll go to a more expensive grocery store.
Well, I mean, speaking of which, we are going to get some nice tasting cuts, right?
Oh, I'll be cooking when we're camping.
Nice.
I have to decide what all I'm going to snag, but from what Inquisitor said, this one is not as remote of a campsite, right?
I don't think so, no.
So what I'll probably do is load up my cooler. I have a really good igloo cooler that is able to stay cold for 96 hours. So I'll load that up with some ice packs, some food, and I'll bring that and be able to cook out of that.
Oh yeah, ice packs. That's something
Yep.
I gotta pick up.
But yeah, I'll probably also bring a bottle of rum like last time. Probably a bottle of whiskey. It's Wisconsin. We'll be able to get beers somewhere.
Well, rum. Do you mean rum or that pirate rum that you brought?
Oh, I'm going to bring rum so I can make more grog this time as well.
Grog. Yeah,
Because you guys
grog.
seem to enjoy the grog.
Well, I mean, we drank it.
Did you not enjoy the grog?
It was grog for sure. So
An acquired taste, is that what you're trying to say?
yeah, you know, it's
Not the
like
biggest fan of grog?
well, no, because if you offered me grog, I'd drink. Hey, well, okay, yeah, but it's not something that I'm like, dude. You know what? I can go for some grog.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
In
that's.
that case, I might not bring, or I might not be mixing up grog this go then.
I think the thing was too much of the maple,
Not
but then
maple, it
again,
was
or
molasses.
molasses. Yeah, but I mean, it was still good.
But yeah, it's something that's fun to be able to mix up when you want.
Still bring it. Well, at least for the. I think we're still going for a run fair too. So
Yep, a day at the Ren Fair.
yeah, so we gotta at least have grog for a run fair.
Fair enough. But yeah, I'll bring a bit of booze. We can get beers at some point. Have those as well. I'll figure out what meats I want to bring for the camp, and I'll shove them in an igloo and surround them with some ice, or rather
You
ice
think we
packs.
can? Well, yeah, we could have a chat with it tomorrow. Quiz and I tomorrow are gonna go looking at. See, I was telling him, I was like, dude, it would probably be cheaper to get a tent on like Amazon as opposed to some of the uh, camping shops that we have out here.
I suppose, but if you have an REI and you have an REI membership, you can get good recommendations, and the prices aren't terrible.
I think there's an REI shop.
And you know that they have good quality at REI. But the thing about REI is a co-op, so if you have a membership, it's good. If you don't have a membership, it isn't as good.
Yeah, and then signing up for a membership is like $100, right?
I don't know. I thankfully have another means of being able to use a membership.
Ah,
Yeah,
no.
all of the. Say again?
Oh no, I was gonna say, oh yeah, we're gonna go picking up the rest of the equipment that I need. Um, and then shit, yeah, it's just fucking Monday through Wednesday of work for me, and then it's
Yep.
vacation time.
Yeah, because you guys are doing the early bit. I'm just doing the camp and Ren fair, so I have this entire work week for me, and then I have part of next week because I work Saturday and Sunday, and then it's Monday that I head out to the campsite. And then we're at the campsite from like Monday to, what was it, Thursday or Friday?
I think Thursday.
And then it's Fridays are one travel day. Then we're at the Ren Fair on Saturday, and then Sunday's my travel day back.
Woo-ha!
But yeah, I need to double check with Inquisitor to see if it is a little bit less remote. Because if it's a little bit less remote, one of those you pull into the campground, you go to your campsite, you're there. Deals rather than the. So first you go across the body of water on a ferry, then you end up on an island. Then you go to another ferry. Then you end up on another island. Then you walk to the campsite.
Yeah, that I asked him if there was outlets, and he said he wasn't sure. And I asked him that because when
The glamping site that Weibo had outlets.
yeah,
Yeah,
had outlets, whereas the one on the island, no.
yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. Um, we'll see how the either way. I'm fucking getting the tent because I'm not gonna sleep outside.
Yep.
Not those many nights again.
Don't want to deal with the raccoons again.
Hell no. That scared the shit out of me, man.
There's wildlife. No one
Fucking
shot it yet.
that was Gremlin Granny getting a little too her powers were getting bigger.
Yep. But I'll be checking with Inquisitor about that next week, so I make sure that I have the right shit to bring.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if we're not going to be doing any like hiking or anything.
Yeah. Well, from what he said, there was a trail that we can walk,
Oh,
which I'm fine with doing a hike. I just want to know the situation to get to the campsite, because if it's a decent trek, then that tells me one way of loading up. If it's a fairly straightforward path, that tells me another way of loading up. Because my 96-hour cooler is rather large. So if it's a fair bit of a trek, I don't want to load up a 96-hour cooler and have to carry that, my tent, my sleeping bag, all my other shit.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna meet up with him tomorrow. So if you want, I'll send you a message, and if you're available, three of us can yeah. Actually, I don't know if this kind of off show topic. Kind
I
of
end up working at night, so it might be a bit difficult. But we can arrange that off show.
yeah.
Though, yeah, there's, like I said, also the Russian salient happened just recently, which has some people absolutely shitting their pants and trying to predict the outcome of the war. And as far as I'm concerned, trying to predict the outcome of this has been an absolute shit show. And this current round of predictions doesn't seem much better. And for those who don't know, it's the Russians pushed into a lightly defended section of the Ukrainian front, but it's a lightly defended section of the Ukrainian front that's also near one of the major arteries for the northern portion of the counteroffensive.
Oh, shit. They just did this recently.
Like a couple days ago. So they had a push where they were able to make 4 river heads across and start pushing towards the major artery. There have been Ukrainian troops dispatched to those areas. The troops that were originally there, like I said, it was fairly lightly defended with newer troops, more lightly armored, so a good chunk of the Ukrainian troops in the original push fell back. Now the Ukrainians are regrouping, rearming, and moving more troops into the area while also taking up defensive positions. So there's a lot of people going, see, Russia's going to win. There's a lot of people going, Ukraine. And I'm going, well, it depends on how the troop movements go. If Russia's able to dive deep enough, dive fast enough, and sever the artery, Ukraine's in a bad way. If Ukraine is able to dispatch its troops, which it already has 2 more elite units that are in the area, then there's a fair chance that the Russian salient will end up collapsing in upon itself, and they'll be backed up against the river.
Man, this is crazy how long this conflict has been going.
Well, it's not really that insane, because like I was saying earlier, the main issue with the Russian military on paper was impressive as all hell. The problem was that was on paper. The Russian military in actuality is corrupt from top to bottom. Most of their vehicles haven't had the fuel. Most of their electronic equipment has had wiring ripped out of it and sold off as copper. Most of their weapons have been using subpar ammo. New weapons are rather rare, so they're mainly pulling out of unmaintained armories of old weapons stores. Their tactics are shit because most of their higher ups were people that bribed their way into those positions in the army. When you have corruption at every level of a military, that military shit. The same thing was true with the Iraqi military. Did you know that at the time of OIF, the Iraqi military was the 3rd largest in the world? Did you know that, Adam?
I think I heard about something about that, right?
Yeah, it was supposedly the 3rd largest and 3rd best maintained army in the world. It collapsed in record time because it was just completely eaten away at by corruption. And the same thing with the Russian military. It, on paper, very impressive, very big, very scary. In practice, it's corrupt, poorly managed, poorly equipped, constantly suffering supply line failures. Their body armor hasn't been anything near what they said their body armor was, mainly because the body armor that they're currently wearing isn't the body armor that they said that they were wearing. Meanwhile, Ukraine has been getting backed by NATO and been getting NATO surplus. And the thing is, when NATO says, yeah, our weapons are able to shoot through this level of body armor, those NATO weapons are able to shoot through that level of body armor. When NATO says that, yeah, our anti-air defenses are able to do X, Y, Z, those anti-air defenses are able to do X, Y, and Z. So we have a army that it is a paper army that on paper it was going to be an even match to damn near any military in the world, up to and maybe including the US, that once you see in practice, it's none of that, because it doesn't have any of the capability that it said, since all of its shit was undermined, all of its shit was overhyped. Their body armor wasn't the body armor that they said it is. A lot of their body armor doesn't even have ballistic plates in it. So when we made rifles that shot through the ballistic plates that they said that they were making, our bullets can shoot through that ballistic plate. The thing is, they don't have that ballistic plate even. So they're getting rounds that can shoot through ballistic plate put straight into their chest, without
So it's
even
like
slowing down due to ballistic plate.
it's like defunct ammo, or
No, our ammo is good. Now, if you're talking about theirs, a lot of their ammo is old. And old ammo doesn't quite work right. It can become more dangerous, more potent, or less dangerous, less potent, depending on how it was kept. But they said that they had body armor for the Russian military that was like a 3A plus to 4 plus body armor. Turns out that a lot of their troops don't have body armor. Not that they don't have level 3A plus body armor. They don't have body armor at all. Ukraine is getting ammo from the US rated to shoot through 3A plus body armor, and some of it's able to shoot through 4. They don't have the body armor. They're just getting shot with ridiculous ammo. The Russians said that their tanks were the latest and greatest, and they're able to do all these amazing things. They can't do half the things that they said they could do. A good chunk of them have had important bits of wiring ripped out and sold. They're dealing with a lot of much older tanks than they said that they were going to be dealing with. They were supposed to be fielding mainly their, T-14s, their newest, latest, and greatest tank. Most of the tanks being fielded are T-79s and earlier. They said that their tanks had these active defensive measures that were fantastic. They were on par with the M1 Abrams defensive measures. Most of those defensive measures don't work. Many of them have been just sold off. Many of them have had important bits of wiring ripped out. The ones that haven't had either of those issues, they just don't work as well as they said they did. They said that their tanks were able to take shots from javelins. Javelins hit them, and their entire magazine detonates, killing everyone in the tank. And it does this routinely. I'm trying to remember the term. It's like a pop-off kill is what it's called, because Ukrainians found out that if you take a javelin and you have the javelin come down almost right on the turret, it penetrates the armor, immediately detonates the magazine in the turret, causing it to kill everyone inside. Also, it produces enough pressure that the top of the tank, the turret of the tank, is popped off like a bottle cap. So it was an impressive military on paper. It doesn't have any of that in actuality. Because corruption's an absolute son of a bitch. So they don't have the equipment, they don't have the tactics. A lot of their training has been subpar, especially now that they're calling in conscripts rather than their proper military. So it's really a showcase of how corruption kills a military. And that's also part of the reason why everyone keeps on saying, well, they have nuclear arms, they have nuclear arms, they have nuclear arms, they have nuclear arms. Nukes are difficult to maintain, at least to maintain properly. It's a constant thing. The US spends a fair bit of money making sure that our nuclear arsenal is maintained up to date and good to go at a moment's notice. Russia said that they have been doing this. Russia also said that their T-14 was going to be in active service. Russia also said that their tanks had these active defensive measures. Russia also said that they had the body armor that they don't have. Russia also said that it had some of the best military commanders. It doesn't. Russia also said that it has these ridiculous capabilities in bits of equipment that it doesn't have. Russia also says that it's impossible to intercept the Kinzhal. The Kinzhal has been intercepted multiple times. The point is, you can't trust what Russia says. Because, yeah, they're getting all the paperwork saying that they're doing it, but all it takes is someone being lazy and signing off on the paperwork.
Yeah, dude.
And that's what happened with everything else. So why should we assume that in the case of the nuclear armaments, that's where they actually put in all the work? That's where they actually maintained everything. I'm not saying that we shouldn't assume that they still have dangerous nukes. I'm saying that probably a good chunk of their nukes are just on paper now.
If they were even real, too. I mean,
Oh no, I'm willing to bet that they were real at one point. The thing is, I don't believe the specs that they had, because this problem with corruption and bullshitting in the Russian military, it isn't a new phenomenon. It isn't something that just came about after the Cold War. It isn't even something that came about just in the Cold War, during the communist reign. The communist reign made it worse. It made it a fuck ton worse. But have you ever looked into the Russo-Japanese War?
yeah, a bit.
Did you look into the Russian Navy during the Russo-Japanese War?
Uh, how it got destroyed?
Well, it got... So the first ship that was in the port, that got destroyed. That one actually did a really fantastic showing. Then the Russian military functionally destroyed their own navy en route to try to fight the Japanese. The moment that they got there, they then got completely destroyed. And when I say that they destroyed their entire fleet in transition, they turned their fleet into a floating zoo in Madagascar. Just in the middle of the trip. Middle of the trip to fight the Japanese during the Russo-Japanese War, they turned their navy into a floating zoo. Also, they had this beautiful ship that was their latest and greatest ship. It was the Aurora, if I remember the name correctly. They shot the Aurora at least 8 times just trying to get to the South China Sea. They almost accidentally entered a war with England while trying to get to the South China Sea.
Dude.
It is the biggest shit show. What the fuck is going on, Russia? When you listen to the entire story about this voyage, where they were just trying to get from Russia to the South China Sea. It was a comedy of goddamn errors with an extremely angry admiral. The admiral, just anytime that a ship would fuck up, he would have that ship move right behind their flagship. And he had a old-timey speaker system set up effectively, where he would use the old-timey speaker system to yell at the ship behind them. Because he was just so pissed off. He beat the shit out of 3 other captains.
You say old-timey speaker systems, I think of those like on the old record players where it's like a bronze conical type.
Yeah, I'm talking like 1900s speakerphones.
Yeah.
Where you definitely have that "listen here, you son of a bitch" type quality to it. Only he was screaming obscenities in Russian and throwing binoculars at the trailing ship. Because he was the only one that wasn't a tremendous fuck up. One of the ships, no less than 12 times by the time that they made it to Madagascar, said that they were actively sinking after being attacked by Japanese ships in Northern Europe.
Holy shit.
It was an absolute clusterfuck. The Russian military has been plagued by corruption and just ridiculousness since it was still ruled by a czar, and communism just made it worse. I mean, for fuck's sake, one of the main generals that ended up being credited with winning World War II for the Russians, he was pulled out of a gulag where fucking Stalin had thrown him before the war, where he had been horrendously tortured until Stalin realized Russia's going to die and pulled him out of the gulag because he was the last professional surviving general.
Look, dude. If you're gonna make an omelet, gotta crack some eggs.
Normally people refer to chicken eggs with that. Apparently, if you make an omelet the Russian way, first you have to punch yourself in the balls at least like 16 times, then you crack a couple chicken eggs. The punching yourself in the balls had nothing to do with anything except just a misunderstanding and bad communication. It's absolutely ridiculous when you look into it. And like I said, so many people are going, "Oh, Russia has it now." I don't. If this war has taught anyone anything, it's if you think Russia has it in the bag, they will find a way to fuck it up. They aren't
Yeah,
anywhere
if
near as
if
big and scary as you think they are.
if Russia had it in the bag, it would have been done already.
Yeah. Russia isn't anywhere near as big and scary as people have been making it out to be. Corruption is a hell of a thing. But it is almost time to end. Do you have any story that you want to toss out real quick, or shall we just go straight to parting words?
Um, I don't know. I think we brushed up on some of the topics.
Mm-hmm.
So
The
yeah,
only other
no.
one that we mentioned beforehand that we didn't get into was the rapid mental decline of many U.S. politicians.
Oh, right. Yeah. Um, but you know what? I think we're at a rapid decline on our attention span and our viewership. Oh,
So save it for another time.
sure.
Copy
I will
that.
say it is kind of creepy seeing some of this stuff going on. Um, and I will say, people pay attention to this stuff. I mean, it's happening left and right, and it's not just a goofy stumble on a stair. It's
If
dude.
someone's actively undergoing mental decline, don't vote for them.
Yes, yes, and we could have even gone into discussion of like between like Monkey and Hammer, where they're saying we should have an age restriction, or
I disagree. I disagree with the age restriction.
and that's where I think Hammer goes in with uh not compensation, comprehension test, and I think that is something more, because even if you're 100 years old, if you're fucking able to do your job, I don't see a problem with it. But yeah,
See,
no, yeah, we
I
should
think
talk.
the problem is not so much that we need to have a cutoff limit for our politicians or anything like that. What we need to have is we need to, as voters, just pay the fuck attention and vote responsibly, be educated about what we're voting on. Because well, someone can get too old. We shouldn't have people that are too old. No, sometimes an old person is really wise, and that's why people want to vote for them because they
Well,
have a shit ton of experience and they give good counsel. If someone's brain is melting, that's not a problem with they're old. We have a younger guy in the Senate right now whose brain is melted.
yeah,
And
Fetterman.
yeah, Fetterman. Fetterman's a goddamn vegetable.
But here's the
That
thing.
it's
Here's
not
then
the age that's the issue. It's the voters that are the issue. When the
Sanguine,
voters don't give a damn.
Sanguine, and this is where we could talk about the next one, because I would say it goes into, are they really voted in? Are they? Is Mitch McConnell has he really been voted in? Are people really voting this person in? I don't think so. I think we are seeing cracks in the system, and that's where it's getting to the point where these people are, they're there, and they're put there until well, they can't say nothing. But again, that's tinfoil hat at them. You know
Yeah,
me.
I would say that they are actually voted. It's just our voters are fucking retarded. which I've met the average person. That tracks.
Yeah, a lot of weirdo people out there.
Yeah, I've met way too many people that they don't give a shit as long as it has the right letter next to the name. To think that, well, people wouldn't really vote for someone just because they have the right letter. No. I've met those people.
And that's where it gets dangerous.
I know they're there.
Yeah.
And that's why I say that we just need to get standards when it comes to who we vote for again. And it's one of the reasons why poll tests need to be outlawed. No, poll tests didn't need to be outlawed. Racist poll tests needed to be outlawed. It shouldn't be against the law to go, do you actually know who the fuck you're voting for?
Yeah, I think that's, But again, it goes into, are you an informed voter?
Yep, and the vast majority of people aren't.
Nope.
But it sounded like you wanted to get out of here, so do you want to do your parting word?
Oh. Yes. Well, dude, I had a fun conversation with you this evening.
Always fun.
Thanks again for letting me join, but
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks. So it should be fun. Say we're gonna have, I think, a Saturday where we will be able to do this live, right?
I think if we're able to broadcast from wherever we are when it's the Ren Fair night, then yes.
Nice. Well, that'll be fun.
Because I think we're going Ren Fair on Saturday, and then I'm driving back Sunday.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we'll see what's up.
Yep.
But yeah, it's been fun.
I'll leave off.
God bless and love y'all.
Yep. And I'll leave off with my standard of, if you're passionate about something, make sure that you devour it. Don't let it devour you. And with that, have a good night, all. The zoo is closed.
Night.
And now I wake up my mouse and I click the end broadcast